Grüezi miteinander.
Grüezi. Welcome at the Biovision Symposium. It's great to have you here. It's a great pleasure to welcome you in the Volkshaus and in front of your screens. I'm Simon Zuber and I'll guide you through today's program. As always with Biovision, it is about food in a broader sense. For what we eat, how we produce our food, decides our planet. Like no other human activity, climate change, overfishing, deforestation are just a few keywords. What did you eat for lunch today? I ate a cheese sandwich. Such a sandwich has about 400 calories. A woman like me needs about 1,900 calories a day. How many calories do you think do we produce worldwide per head? About twice of what I need. Most of it is fed to animals or thrown away. At the same time, hundreds of millions of people go hungry. This is so paradox. So I really think we have to change things. We at Biovision think that the whole food system has to change. What does that mean? If we go back to our cheese sandwich, it means that I have to ask myself, how was the flour cultivated that was used to make the bread? Where did the milk for the cheese come from? Where did I buy the cheese? At the farm or in a retail shop? And what do the political regulations look like that set the price? If you look closely, you can see that many people are already reshaping the food system in Kenya, in Malawi, and here in Switzerland. We'd like to present a few of these many initiatives this afternoon. Our director, Frank Eihorn, will give you first insight into our subject. You have the floor.
Welcome also from my side. I'm so happy that you have come in such great numbers, or you now are with us online. Food moves, and much of this is related to nutrition. And I must say, new times and troubled times, climate change crisis, political and economic crisis, energy crisis, biodiversity crisis, one could actually lose hope. I don't know how you feel, but sometimes for me it's hard to remain optimistic. But much of this crisis systems are related to nutrition and are actually intertwined in a complex way and are re-strengthening each other. Let's just take the political crisis. Due to the devastating war in Ukraine, production and export of wheat and crops is not possible anymore, and the gases are capped and cut down, and this with the energy crisis and drought and the Horn of Africa, which endures one of the worst droughts in decades. This all makes it very difficult when we talk about the food situation. And climate change has also a lot to do with food and nutrition. You know, the drought, but also so much water. We have floods. We have seen that in various places globally. And of course, nutrition has to do a lot with it, food production. And they are also part of the problem because 1/3 of climate gases come from food systems. At the same time, the food system could also be part of the problem. And if it's possible to actually take out carbon from air and store it in soil, in humus, then that would strengthen food production versatility, because then the moisture of the soil could be kept at a longer time. And you know that COP27 in Egypt just came to an end, and once again, almost nothing as a result. A lot of hot air has been produced. Where should that lead us to? But at the same time, the call of the countries that really want change in a serious way said that those that are really responsible for the climate change have to do something, because it's in their responsibility to be liable for all the damages. It's a long ways to go there, but sometimes I think a little bit has started to move, and I question myself, what do we leave our children, our next generation, our grandchildren, with all the costs that we have now been the origin of and which they are then faced with. Sorry that I was a bit too fast. Now, the hunger crisis. This summer, we saw what it means. Imminent hunger crisis due to climate change, due to the energy crisis, and one realizes that the globalized agrarian system, the way we produce and distribute food, has come to a limit. It's not the ultimate solution to feed the global population. And at this time, you hear more voices to go another way. And of course, we hear other voices such as that, yes, one has to do even more intensification of agriculture, and one has to stop with ecological farming, because ecological farming is less productive, and that's the reason why the poor people in Africa go hungry. And I think the reaction was quite fast. My colleague Stefani Pondini called what it was, namely fake news, and it's not true. We all know that's not a problem of lacking productivity or production, but it's lacking distribution, and because there is not enough production locally, because these globalized supply chains of food production hamper the fact that local farmers could be part of agricultural systems. What does it mean for a country such as Malawi? This is where we go to have a look at today. Malawi is one of the poorest countries in the world. Malnutrition is a big issue. We're going to hear more about it. I visited Malawi last March, and I could observe our work. And one Sunday, I climbed up a hill and I saw how maize, corn, is dominant in the agriculture of the country. The government subsidized the crop production of maize, even if the soil was lacking fertility, and it's all exhausted. And this is why it led to a one-sided nutrition. And the people saw that it's not longer worth growing maize. And it's a never-ending vicious circle. And at the same time, we have new movements coming up saying that diversifying agriculture with another kind of soil management, we could very well feed the population with a sustainable form of agriculture. And we are going to see more about it with our experts from Malawi. And all in all, even more people know and realize that these things are interconnected in a very complex way, globally and nationally. And we are part of the system, and we can actually move something in the true sense of the word, moving about. And not only Malawi, but internationally, things are on the move. In the meantime, almost 40 governments have joined the agroecology coalition, and which was also supported by the UN and governments that say we have to find other ways, we have to restructure our politics and agricultural ways, and we have to see how ecology and economy works, and politics and all the other partners of the government are now coming together, and I think in the background lots is being done, and this gives me new hope that a new movement could be coming up very strongly. And even in Switzerland things are happening. But as we know, as the country's tradition is, it moves on very slowly. But the government, in its strategy for sustainable agriculture and food, has come up with first steps with agroecology, with more promotion of sustainability. Unfortunately, only with a horizon of 250, and I think time's running up. We don't have that much time, and we have to look what Parliament is doing, whether they can do something and speed up. Sometimes I get the impression that society has moved further on than politics, and what if the society would directly shape the framework conditions, what we want to do in food policy. And this is the main idea of one of the most courageous projects of Biovision in the last 1 to 2 years, namely the Citizens' Assembly for Food Policy. How can you shape the framework conditions if people from the society, if the citizens themselves could deal with the questions of how to really design our food production in a sustainable way? And we're going to hear from the actors of the Citizens' Assembly later on. You know, movement is exhausting also for my team. And I would like to thank you very much for your great commitment you show. You are wonderful, a great team, and you do an amazing job. Thank you very much. And part of our team is, of course, all our foundation council. Some of the members of the councils are here. Ruedi Baumgartner has been in our council for 17 years. He has shared important inputs and has given us very much avenues into the horizon. We had to say goodbye yesterday. Ruedi Baumgartner, thank you again very much for all what you have done for Biovision. And last but not least, I would like to thank you all, you the supporters, the donors, the members of Biovision. You are the ones that are moving Biovision. Without you, we could not move anything. So now I would like to wish you a very touching insight and experience with the program of this afternoon. I will be back later in the program. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation, Frank. For housekeeping announcement, if there's a whistle in your headset, there's a problem with the translation headset. So if you listen to German, then choose channel 1. If you listen to English, then choose channel 2. Back to our program. In the weeks before the symposium within our organization, it's a bit chaotic. We are excited, very excited, and a lot of tension at Biovision, because this year we didn't know whether our participants would be able to come from Africa until yesterday. However, we also have a lot of joy. I, for example, facilitate this meeting today. Normally at Biovision, I work with donors who finance our projects. I exchange with them about the impact and the effect and the targets of our programs. It's always a particular pleasure to be able to report on projects that have a direct positive impact. And that's the kind of project we'd like to present today. It says, hurrah, closed forever. That's what's written on the screen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I am Esther Lubafia. I'm Executive Director for Soilos Food and Healthy Communities Organization. In short, we say SFHC. I started working with the SFHC before the name came into being. What I mean is, even before the name came, I was working at the Ekwendeni Mission Hospital as a nurse midwife. Professionally, I'm a nurse midwife. So at that time, I was in charge of maternal and child health as a coordinator. And we had a lot of malnutrition. Now, because we had a lot of malnutrition, we were doing different interventions in order to fight the malnutrition. But we were not reaching the point where malnutrition could be reduced. So we started going into the communities, doing some cooking with mothers of malnourished children. That didn't help us. Fortunately, in 1998, there was a student who came to Ekwendeni, Malawi, from Guaf. She came to a sister organization. She came to do her research in masters. What she wanted to do was to use liquid manure in growing vegetables with the vulnerable widows. So what happened was, where she came, it was not possible for them to find the 10 vulnerable widows. So the primary health care director from Ekwendeni Hospital approached me, Esther, why don't you try to help Rachel Bisnicker to do her research? I said, straight away, I'll do that. I did that. With the same day, I found the 10 vulnerable women, widows, and they discussed with her, and they started growing vegetables. This was to help these women at least have food, because they were having no food. But what happened was, apart from having that food only, they also grew so much that they started selling. So they were better economically, plus having food. So that interested a lot of people in Ekwendeni. Now the women started saying, why can't we also join in the program? So as they were wanting to join that program, then we said the women and the other community people should sit together and try to ask Rachel Bisnicker to come. So Rachel Bisnicker came. When Rachel Bisnicker came, we started saying we should now start the program in agroecology. And when we started the program in agroecology, we said, what should we do first? First, we should find some women and men who can start with the project. So what happened was, we sat down with Ekwendeni Hospital and asked them what we would like to do, and the Ekwendeni Hospital said, you can go ahead. And in 2000, the SFHC started. While SFHC started, we said, while we are doing this project, we should also be doing some in-depth interviews. So we're doing some in-depth interviews to find the cause of malnutrition. And we found that the main cause was there was a lot of domestic violence, there was a lot of food security, there was poor soils, and that made us think, now what should we do? And then what happened was, we should select people from the villages where there is high malnutrition. So the villages were selected. There were 30 villages, 7 villages which were selected, starting with 30 farmers. While these were selected, Egwendeni Mission Hospital, including myself, we were still giving the community likuni pala, which was made from soya beans. And this soya bean powder was given from World Food Program, all the way produced and distributed, not even manufactured in Malawi, but from somewhere else to distribute. And now, after starting this project, after the 30 farmers being trained in agroecology, where they were planting their own soya beans, planting different legumes, meaning soya beans, ground nuts, bambala nuts, and all those. And some legumes like cereals like maize and maize and sorghum. People started making their own food. After people started making their own food, it was discovered that we didn't want World Food Program to start distributing the food again, because people are making their own food. So agroecology was born. People started becoming researchers. They were good researchers. They were able to mix. At the same time, with our in-depth interviews, we continue to say, because of these women who are now knowing the cause of malnutrition, we should involve every single woman to take part, and even men to take part in the agroecology project. Now, what happened was, one, farmers, community members became researchers. They were able to know exactly how they can mix and how they can improve their soil and how they can make good, nutritious food. Apart from that, we also started saying, yeah, somewhat a bit. Yeah, apart from that, the community was saying, now the fact that we are now growing our own food, we are making our own food, how do we improve children malnutrition? We started doing nutrition discussion groups in the community. In that, we're first having men together, women together of different ages, and then mixing them together so that they can all know how they can fight malnutrition. Apart from fighting malnutrition, how they can diversify the food. Apart from diversifying the food, how they can diversify the crops. That each household should have different types of crops. Each household should eat different types of food. And that made the community improve so much. After the community had improved so much, we were now able to say, in Egwendeni Hospital, this is what we have done. And after doing that, I was still a nurse. I was working as a nurse, maternal child health coordinator, at the same time HIV/AIDS coordinator, also jumping into SFHC, helping with SFHC. So I was a jack of all trades. Now, after doing that, my colleagues also in SFHC working hand in hand with me. One accountant who was doing accounts from AIDS program, SMCH, and also SFHC. And after doing that, we said, what should we do? Now that we are having little funding to help SFHC, what should we do? And people said, mainly the community decided to say, we should stand on our own, move from the hospital premises and have our own center where we can work. Now, because of that, in 2017, we built our own offices. It means in Ekwendeni Hospital, I'm deciding to retire, to say I have delivered enough babies, I have given a lot of treatment, AIDS patients, and all that. Now I can concentrate with what is causing malnutrition. So for the well-being of everyone, agroecology is becoming the answer. I will move and work with my colleagues. And therefore the community was so pleased that we moved and have our own center. Yes, we had our own center. We started our own center. But you can start build the structure, but that structure to finish needed some people to come in and help us. So Biovision Foundation came in to help us to finish that center so that we can work very well in our offices and have a lot of demonstration gardens and a lot of people coming to learn from there. Now, at the moment, as I am saying, we are having the community which has farmers like Mwapi. Mwapi is a young farmer, a community promoter who is part of the team teaching the community, bringing the community so that they all work together. And at the end of the day, I can say we are working with over 15,000 farmers from 30 farmers that we started with in 2000. In 7 villages, now we are working with over 600 and something villages from the time we started up to now, and we are still continuing. But the most important thing which came out was the Nutrition Rehabilitation Center was admitting 100 children per month, in and out, and some children were dying. The malnutrition was in 2 forms, kwashiorkor and marasmus. Marasmus, it means no food. Kwashiorkor, it means they are having some food maybe, but they don't take proteins. This is because they didn't know how to prepare and whatever to do with that. Now, by the time it was coming to 2011, 2010, Nutrition Rehabilitation Center was completely closed. Thank you.
Esther. Thank you, Esther. This is such an impressive story. Thank you for telling it, and we are looking forward to hearing more from you later on. Wie wir von Esther Lupafia gehört haben, kann die ökologische Landwirtschaft neue Perspektiven bieten. Ich denke, 2 Personen in diesem Raum haben sich
ecology offer new perspectives. I think 2 people in our audience, my colleagues Fabian and Flo, can tell us more about this. They went to Kenya a little time ago and came back with their experiences and impressions. I'd like the 2 of them to come to the floor. Fabian Kohler is responsible for development, cooperation, and Florian Blumer is a project reporter. The 2 of you, you have the floor. Yes, Fabian and me were in Nairobi and its surroundings in May of this year. Fabian talked to people in our partner organizations, and I talked to farmers. And we collected stories for our magazine and for different media outlets. When Esther talked before, I was reminded of Kenya in this spring. Indeed, for me it's the same thing. I was reminded of people and partner organizations in Kenya. And what was so great is that the issues that our partners and people like Esther have been working on for years with a lot of commitment, that these issues are met with more and more approval by society. Yes, I think we all felt the energy of Esther, and it's the very same energy that we met when we were in Kenya. I'll tell you more about that in a few minutes. First, however, Fabian, as a program coordinator, how did you realize that Africa is on the move as regards food? Esther has told us very impressive facts about Malawi, and we at Biovision will be able to do much more in Malawi in the future because we have many like-minded partner organizations there. Those of you who have been with Biovision for a longer time know that Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Uganda are also core countries of our work. I'd like to take you about 1,000 kilometers north of Malawi, of Ekwendeni, where you can see the red spot. Many of you know that we work on ecological approaches in farming. We work with small-scale farmers to the political level and consumers, and we work on how knowledge is going from one level to the other level. You can relax on your seats while I take you on a journey around the complex infographic on the screen. I'll explain why we at Biovision think that people are on the move in East Africa and why they are moved by food. Let's look at research and education first. Our partner organizations have been really active for very many years, and that's paying off. In the past years in Kenya and Eastern Africa in general, many big major projects by international organizations have been focusing on the dissemination of agroecological knowledge. Different methods like trainings, extension officers, and biodiversity trainings have been implemented. A lot of this is based on the knowledge of our partner organizations who are part of the projects, or in some cases also lead the projects. On the other hand, the people or the number of organizations we work with in research and that are based on agroecology has been growing a lot in the past years. ECP, as you know, is a very important partner organization of Biovision, but in the past years, the number of research partners has grown enormously. Our partners do research on soil fertility, for example, how it can be improved in tropical countries, on intercropping, methods of intercropping that are particularly effective. This brings me to politics. The scientific basis is very important when you want to be heard in politics. I'd like to give you an example from Kenya. The Kenyan constitutions for about 10 years has been saying that citizens' assemblies have to be integrated when new laws are being elaborated. With the support of our partners in Kenya, we supported citizens' assemblies in 8 counties that are to promote agroecology. On Wednesday, a few days ago, we heard the following. In the county of Murang'a in central Kenya, the first agroecology law has come into force, finally. Let's stay with politics. Although we had very good news on Wednesday, we are really worried that the use of artificial fertilizers has increased a lot in the past 10 years. Next week, the Parliament once again is reacting to a petition by the citizens and is voting on a better regulation of pesticides. Politicians, doctors, consumers are worried about residues, very high residues of poisons in food, and also about the impact of pesticides on agricultural workers and farmhands. And 30% of the pesticides that are used in Kenya have been banned in our country, so here in Switzerland, for a long time. However, what is not banned is their export. The recently elected president announced a few weeks ago that genetically engineered corn or maize is to be permitted, and that was met by a lot of resistance. And that was covered in the media, and it is very clear that how we eat and what we eat is something that people are very conscious about, and that it's clear that ecological products are healthier. But we're not at the end of the debate yet. This makes it very clear that very important drivers of the movement are citizens and their initiatives. They are convicted, they have visions, strong targets, they show us a new path. They encompass people who farm and who sell organic products, rappers who are cooks, people who do podcasts, people who do organic farming in backyards in Kenya, people who do composting or separate waste. All of this happens in Eastern Africa. 50 of these initiatives had an online conference last year that was supported by our organization Biovision. Many of these small initiatives are going to stay. That was shown very clearly at that conference. They are contributing to things that are changing. Well, research, education, politics, committed young people, and growing organic shops. This all shows that people really are interested. Things are on the move. A paradigm shift towards agroecology is there, is going on. And this brings me back to our approach that very much focuses on the dissemination of knowledge and education. Young people are very often very good models, and they see an opportunity in organic farming. Ecology, health, and justice are at the center of their work. This interest is particularly strong in trainings that we do on agroecology in different regions in Africa. We have a lot of interests of students of different areas that really want to change food. Agroecology trainings teach lawyers, doctors, agronomists theory and practice of sustainable food systems. They then take their experiences home to their respective studies and to their workplaces. They then become change makers, people who shape a future food system. I've talked a lot. Flo, you were part of my journey in Kenya, and why I have talked about the future, or why I talked about the future with the University of Nairobi. You were able to meet a few of the students. What was your impression? Thank you, Fabian. That's exactly right. So Fabian was our negotiator, and I met Felix Adiambo and Tira Magunda, who are on the picture. We talked for about 2 hours. I listened to them, and I was really impressed. They want to change things with the knowledges they gained in the training. Tira Maguyu is from the north of Kenya. You all know from the news that this is one of the regions that has been severely hit by the drought. She wants to show people back at home how you can use drought-resistant plants to be able to have a harvest, even when there's little rainfall. In the meantime, she has already started doing that. And the student on the left has tried to motivate his co-students. This is about trainings at university levels. We want to produce change makers, people who change things on a social level. However, it's equally important to also train farmers on the field. That is what SFHC is doing, for example, that Esther was talking about. We are really lucky, and I mean that when we say lucky, that our guests from Malawi are here today. We had problems with the visa, and this today at lunchtime they arrived, and it is such a pleasure to have them here to talk to us about their experiences. We already heard Esther. She was not alone to come to Switzerland. Mbapi Mganavire is with her. She's a community promoter at SFHC, and she's going to tell you what that means. Mbapi, please come to the floor.
Please.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Mbapi. We are so happy to have you here and learn more about your experience as a community promoter at SFHC. So, you became a community promoter in 2012. Before, you were a participating farmer in the trainings. What was your initial motivation to attend SFHC's agroecological trainings?
When I was not part of SFHC, I faced a lot of problems in my household. These problems were, I didn't have a good house. My house was burnt. I also food insecure, and my children were suffering from malnutrition. I was very poor and helpless. I saw that my fellow farmers who were following agroecological practices, their lives were better. This was because of the different agroecological trainings they received from SFHC, like compost manure making and UCS, improving their soils and being food secure. On my own, I could not manage to find seeds, so by joining SFHC, it was an opportunity for me. I have access to diversified seeds like soya, groundnuts, and pigeon peas. I was admiring my fellow farmers because after harvesting these crops, they were having diversified diets and were able to sell some in order to find money for their basic necessities. Therefore, I decided to join SFHC and received my first training in 2001.
So now, more than 20 years later, what has changed for you and your family?
We have overcome malnutrition. I have built my own good house. Soil fertility has improved in my fields because of using different agroecological practices like intercropping, crop rotation, compost manure making, and application. I have been able to sell my farm products like groundnuts and found money to pay for my son's school fees, who is 20 years old and will complete his secondary school education next year. Also, I am able to find money for my household basic needs during dry season farming timber. I grow vegetables in my garden and sell them. I am able to continue growing different diversified crops and using different agroecological practices. First of all, I am also still a farmer, but as a community promoter, I am the connection between SFHC and the people of my community. In this position, I have the following rules. 1, teaching SFHC team members in my village area about the different agroecological practices, nutrition, and gender issues. Collecting monthly reports from SFHC team members of the different agroecological work being done in the villages. The reports include the work which has been done by the farmers in that month, success, challenges, and way forward. These reports, I bring them to the office for filing, but also are using when writing quarterly project reports to the donors. Collecting data and different project experiments being implemented in my village area. Having and keeping records for all the farmers that I work with in my village area. Facilitating trainings at SFHC Farmers and Research Center. We invite farmers from different village areas to train them in different agroecological practices and permaculture designs. Sometimes farmers themselves ask for the trainings in different agroecological practices, and we organize that. They come at the center for the trainings. Our farmers do not pay for the trainings, but farmers from other organizations pay for these trainings. I am a teacher and a blackboard to the farmers in my village area because I implement what I teach at my home and on my own farm. This increases my credibility and my understanding for the situation of the other farmers of my village. I am a part of the community and not somebody coming from outside, telling them how they should do it without an understanding for their situations.
So that's quite a variety of different tasks you have. Which of these topics are the ones you care most about?
A training is the action of teaching a person or a group of people about the particular skills. This involves an interaction between the facilitator and the participants. Topic taught in the trainings. 1, agroecology. Here I mean different ways of farming, naturally like intercropping, crop rotation, compost, agroforestry matching. Gender equality between men and women in sharing workload. Recipe demonstrations, this involves preparing different foods from the crops they grow. Budgeting, this involves how households can plan their farming activities and how they can budget the resources they have to make sure that they have enough food from June to June. Pests and disease control, this involves teaching the farmers different ways in which they can be able to control pests and diseases in their fields. We teach them botanicals like Tephrosia, Tithnonia, Venonia. We teach them of this because they are not hazardous to beneficial insects in the fields. Post-harvesting, this includes teaching farmers how they can be able to manage their farm produce once they have harvested. The most important topic for me is gender. Gender means sharing work and responsibilities between a man and a woman in household, community, national, and even international level. Before gender became an issue, our tradition separated the work to say cooking is only meant for women and not men. They could go together to the farm, but when coming back from the farm, the woman was carrying everything alone. That is, child at the back while she is pregnant, hose, firewood, and axe, while the man was walking freely. When they reach home, a man could sit under a tree shade, waiting for the woman to prepare food. Tradition separates men and women, husband and wives, and gives a lot of power to the men. The results in a separation was women. This made more families to be less productive. This tradition is still persistent, but traditions can be changed. And I observe a lot of this change in my courses and also my surrounding. As the topic of gender tackles such issues that a man and a woman are equal. There are biological features which make them different, but in terms of work, they can all do the work.
Yeah, quite obviously so, I would say.
I want to thank the audience.
Now? And then we go on with the interview, or?
What?
And then we go on with the interview. You want to thank now the audience?
I want to thank the audience.
Now?
That way?
Yes, at the end. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yes, you said that traditions can be changed, but maybe that's not an easy thing to do. So, could you explain to us what do your gender trainings look like? What do you do in these trainings?
The climate change.
The gender trainings.
Okay. These trainings are done together in groups of both men and women. We talk to men and women together. Implementing this work, we use recipe days where men and women come together and help each other cooking. We also use gender campaigns through live bands. We also use drama and compose different songs to talk about the vices of gender equality and talk about the goodness of gender equality.
So go on, yes, please.
Work is listed in the household because there is equal sharing of work among household members. Also, health of the household members increased and they are happier because they have time to rest. Husband and wife are able to make decisions together and share their responsibilities equal. Brings about development in the households because there is unity and cooperation. So as a community promoter, I teach this in order to make sure that the farmers in the villages understand and get transformed in order to empower each other and bring about the much expected development in households and communities.
So this all sounds like very diverse tasks and like a responsible position that you have as a community promoter.
Yes, it is. But it brings a lot of joy and motivation. Since I experienced success with the participants and I can observe the improvements in my community, I am very proud to be part of SFHC and can contribute to improve our livelihood.
Thank you very much, Mopi. Thank you very much, Mwapi, for sharing your experience with us, coming all the
you.
way from Malawi.
Yeah.
And you told me that there might be something you would want to add.
Yes.
Something you would want to say. Yeah. Ich möchte Sie hier ein bisschen Verständnis bitten, dass es nicht alles komplett reibungslos abläuft, aber ich habe es Ihnen gesagt. Mwapi und Esther sind heute um 11:45 im Hotel angekommen, nachdem wir tagelang nicht wussten, ob sie überhaupt kommen. Hier sind sie und ich bin nur glücklich, dass sie hier sind und uns ihre Erfahrungen mitteilen.
We didn't know whether Esther and Mwapi would be with us, so we ask you for understanding if things don't go that smoothly.
Mwapi, please.
For this reason, I thank SFHC and all those who help SFHC to continue giving that help in order to improve our different households, nutrition status, and the community at large through the promotion of exchange visits and farmer-to-farmer learning. I thank Biovision for giving me an opportunity to present the work I am doing at SFHC and for the support to SFHC. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Mwapi. We have to thank you.
Thank you.
You can leave it here. And you can have a seat.
Okay.
Mwapi Mkandawire from Malawi. Nun zurück nach Kenia, genauer gesagt nach Murang'a, rund 80 Kilometer nördlich der Hauptstadt Nairobi.
Now back to Kenya, north of Karanga, north of Nairobi. I was able to visit a group of farmers that had training in sustainable agriculture. And this was on 6th of June of this year, and I was accompanied by members of the Vision Africa Trust, and we visited the highlands. And now there was wonderful green colors after rain had fallen the week before. And this is compared to the rest of the country, lots of rains falling down, but they have a lot of challenges. Young people don't see any perspectives for their life. There's great unemployment, drugs and alcohol and other problems, especially for the young people that don't find a job. Sala Karanja was a great help to us. He received the call of Simon Kimani, and this is the person on the picture. And Simon Kimani had listened their weekly radio program on ecological food production, and he said that they are a young people that would like to grow vegetables but without pesticides and artificial fertilizers, and they now formed a cooperation which I could visit.
Tuhote guteithĩrĩria nginya anake moko nĩ maumia ũhoro-inĩ wa ndawa cia kũrebia na andũ magĩe na irio njega. Na ũndũ tũngĩhota nginya kũhũnia nginya bũrũri kũringana na irio cia organic.
Njuge mbere rĩrĩa tarĩ na tũrĩ na Madam Sarah wa kuma Biovision Trust, tũtiarĩ farm ũrĩa tũrĩ thaa ici tondũ nĩ tũranĩte maũndũ maingĩ mũno agĩtũbundithia gũthondeka ndawa cia kũhuhĩra hĩndĩ ya mbaa, kũhuhĩra pest, agĩcoka agĩtũbundithia kwaragĩra motion tondũ kĩndũ kĩa mbere nĩ atũthomithĩtie agatwĩra mũmera no nginya ũkorwo wĩ mũgunyu, no nginya ũkorwo na moisture nĩguo ũkũhe maciaro mega. After that gĩgakorwo kĩna saving nene tondũ hĩndĩ ĩrĩa itarĩmaga mbere ndahũthĩraga mbeca nyingĩ mũno iria cio ndambaga kũgũra irio, no rĩu ndigũraga irio, handũ ha kũgũra irio nduta irio mũgũnda, saving yakwa nga save. kiroto giakwa ndita murimi kana kioneki giakwa ni kumenya ati uguo tunyitanite twi hamwe kindu kia mbere ni tukwamba tuteithie community ire turigiceirie na bururi ya Sahol gukorwo ati ni turameheraniria turageria kurwa na kumeheraniria urei wa chemical tondu ti healthy thiini wa mwiri.
Ja, der Applaus geht an Nur Kamis, den Fotografen.
The applause to Noah Kamis, the photographer from Nairobi. He was with me, and my colleague has cut this video in a wonderful form. This group so far said one of the persons, when I asked about the future perspectives, the goals that they set to themselves are very high. Feed the country, said the initiator of the group, Bernard. And they will see how far they can get. But it's clear that after 3 years, they have already reached a lot. They all told me that they and their families have said goodbye to food insecurity. In the past, they had to buy what was offered on the market. Usually, no big diversity and a lot of pesticide-contaminated vegetables, as we heard from Fabian earlier. And in addition, the prices have grown a lot, and the people face big problems. Not these young 15 people from Malanga. They have found a way to free themselves from this dependency in a very sustainable way. Sarah Karanja told me about the change since the day that she has started to work in the project. I'm preaching the gospel of organic for 11 years now. She said that with an ironic tone in her voice. At the beginning, it was very hard. The farmers did not believe her that you can have a plant growing without any pesticides or fertilizers. But in the last years, a change took place. Slowly but surely, the farmers started to adopt the systems they learned, and they could do without fertilizers and are producing organic mulches, compost, and also fertilizers. And that makes her very, very proud, together with the others of her project. During my journey, I also met other people. They were very initiative. James Kagwe is one of those young people. He is here in his own recycling station. He didn't like all the waste that was all around, and they started to pick the waste up in his surrounding. And together with other young people, they started to separate the waste, and they found organic material. And 80% of the waste was organic material, and this is how they produced compost for the community gardens. And it's just next to his recycling center, and so on. And today, he is growing or building a training center for agroecological methods, and of course, it's mostly built by waste. Or Silvia Curia, she has an ecological model farm and a production farm in central Kenya. She is selling vegetables together with her team in her little shop in the center of Nairobi. And she also supplies traditional organically grown vegetables to very low prices. And even the poor people can afford to come and buy with her. Silvia Curia is very active on social media such as other members of her team. And at the end, we would like to show you posts that show very well what the energy and the movement of this project is, and what happens in Kenya in general.
organic bananas, food, real food. Again, you are what you eat. Bleed that. Respect.
Ich weiß nicht, wie es Ihnen geht, aber mich ermutigen diese Initiativen. Es ist schön zu sehen, wie
I don't know about you, but I'm very encouraged by these initiatives and when I watch these funny TikTok videos. However, we still have many challenges. Malnutrition is a big issue. When I talked to Esther, she also told me that climate change is a big issue in her region.
und wie recht sie hat. Wir müssen gemeinsam etwas dagegen tun.
So, Klimawandel kennt keine Grenzen, hat Esther gesagt. Das stimmt. Und thank you to all of you. Climate change knows no boundaries. Thank you for being here and for your work in the farming community. Esther, thank you for telling us the story of SFHC. Thank you, Flo, for sharing impressions from Kenya. And thank you, Fabian, for sharing your impression as a program coordinator. Thank you to you all.
Ja, wir im globalen Norden müssen Verantwortung übernehmen.
We in the global north have to take responsibility. We use many more resources than people in the global south. We emit many more emissions. And this is why it's our responsibility to shape a sustainable food system. This is what we are going to talk about in the second part of the symposium. But now, before we go there, I need my colleagues who are going to be at our various stalls in the break. Sabrina, what can we see at your stall? Thank you. I am at the stall that sells things. We have really interesting books for you. A very topical book in English, Transformation of Our Food Systems, with contributions by Hans Herren and other people from Biovision. And I brought the book Globi und der schlaue Bauer, Globi and the Smart Farmer. It's a book that is a very good present for your children and grandchildren. Come and join us. We'll be pleased to talk to you. I brought you a model of a springtail. A springtail is an animal that's not very known. It lives in the soil, but it's really important. Eat dead plants and great many dead plants. And if we didn't have him, then there'd be leaves in the forest and no soil. Apart from the springtail, there are many more animals in the soil. And if you want to know what they really look like, not from far like now, come and join us at our soil stall and discover the life within our soils. Dear guests, I'm Adrian, and I work on development projects. You heard many inspiring things, especially with regard to Malawi and Kenya. If you want to know more about other countries, then come and join us in the first floor. When we at the policy and advocacy team wondered what we could tell you so that we'd incite you to come on our stall, people were saying, oh, it's a bit difficult to sell policy and advocacy. But look at our interesting cube. We are a very interesting stall, and let us show you how interesting policy and strategies for sustainable future are and how you can participate. We look forward to your ideas. Thank you. We from SDSN always wonder, how do we get from the word to the act? How can we walk the talk? And for walking the talk, we need a bridge. And you can help us to build that bridge. We build bridges from the word to the action. And we look forward to making this very concrete by talking to you. You already heard from our colleagues that we are in a time of crisis. I'm Anna from Clever. And in a surrounding of rising prices, I often wonder, what can I do? And we from Clever at the stall in the first floor are convinced that each of us can change things. So if you want to know what you can do, come and join us in the first floor. We as consumer can act. Have fun. A big thank you to you all.